Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. Good evening and welcome to the FCC. It's on the eve of the third Hong Kong E-Prix. We're delighted to welcome Michael Carcamo, the Director of Nissan Global Motorsports, who are participating in this weekend's event with their drivers Sebastian Buemi and Oliver Rowland. Before I start and formally introduce our guest tonight, I'd like to pass on our thanks to a FCC corporate member, very important people, Trevor Hale of Infinity Motors, which is the only global motor manufacturer to have their headquarters in Hong Kong. So we do actually have a car industry in Hong Kong. We don't make them, but... and of course, Infinity is the luxury brand of the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance. And we're delighted that they were able to arrange this evening at the FCC. So, first of all, to introduce our guest tonight, Michael Carcamo, who's, as I say, the Director of Global Motorsport for Nissan, who are participating their first year in Formula E. Bit of a tough start, but we'll be talking about that in a moment. Michael has an extensive career in the motorsport and the motor industry. We were talking earlier, he started off by racing model cars and graduated to being an engineer in the IndyCar series in America, working for a number of teams there, and then going into Nissan, where he's been involved with development of road cars and now Director of their motorsport program and the Formula E in particular. So, please welcome Michael. Right, there's your microphone. Right.
Thank you, Dan.
Michael, well, welcome to Hong Kong and to the FCC. It was a rival motor manufacturer who coined the phrase, racing improves the breed. And now Nissan's the largest manufacturer of electric cars around the world. And this is your first season in Formula E. So, the obvious question, why did you choose to do Formula E when you've got this history in so many other motorsport arena?
Well, first of all, thank you.
You're on?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for welcoming and inviting me to this event. Oh, not working. You guys can hear me now? I speak pretty loud. Okay. You speak loud when you work in racing.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity to come to this great venue, and obviously for Trevor and helping us, Infinity and Nissan as one group. We're actually part of a bigger alliance with Nissan, Mitsubishi, and Renault. But why Nissan is participating in Formula E is maybe an obvious response. First of all, our global EV leadership is one big thing, but you're right, our history and in motorsports goes back a long way, but our history in EVs goes back even further. Actually, Nissan developed the first EV car almost 70 years ago in 1947, and it was in a small electric truck that was born out of an energy crisis in Japan at that time. And we've never stopped innovating, and we've never stopped looking at the opportunities that exist to make the world a better place for our clients. And Formula E suddenly became a natural opportunity for us. We had just launched the second generation Leaf last year, the best-selling EV in the world, over 400,000 vehicles sold to date. And that's really putting technology into the hands of more people. And Formula E became an opportunity for us to really demonstrate that in a more emotional and exciting way. And what better way to do that than in racing, as you said.
Now, it's your first year, 4 events so far. Last race in Mexico, you're doing really well, and you ran out of power on the last lap. I mean, was that a bit embarrassing, or is that, well, let's put that down to the learning experience, and are you going to avoid that this weekend?
Absolutely part of the learning experience, but I guess it shouldn't be underestimated the type of racing that's involved here. As opposed to other forms of racing, Formula E is very unique because it's actually an efficiency race, and it's a race where we try and reach efficiencies above 98% efficiency of our powertrain. Now, if you can imagine that a normal ICE engine, even a Formula One engine, doesn't reach 50%. We're talking a very high level, and that balance between power and efficiency and making it last to the very end, well, obviously, as you know, it's critical, and we were about 10 seconds too short in the last race, but you know, you can't achieve success without some roadblocks along the way, and we learned a lot from the first 4 races. We believed we're well positioned, and that next step is maybe could be here in Hong Kong.
Because it's quite complicated, isn't it, with the races now being 45 minutes plus 1 lap. So you don't actually know how long the race is when you start. And if the driver in the lead goes over the line of 44 minutes and 58 seconds, you've got to do an extra couple of miles that you might not have budgeted for.
This is exactly the case. I think in hindsight, what we learned is we might have pushed the leader too much. Rather than just make him follow our pace, we pushed the pace and ended up. But this is, again, the format of Formula E is another interesting dynamic. It's the only sport that has fan engagement through Fan Boost, where people can actually interact and help a team directly. We have attack mode in this starting from season 5. Attack mode where suddenly within any point in the race, you might have the opportunity to have 25 kilowatts more power than another competitor, which makes passing then more interesting, but again unpredictable. And then this race format of 45 minutes plus a lap. Again, a truly unique environment in Formula E, unlike any other motorsports.
You talked about efficiency there,
Yeah.
and then there's the other element that you always notice when you go to a Formula E race of, it's quiet. Now then, any sport is about passion. How do you get people passionately engaged with this? To me, you know, the wail of a Ferrari flat 12, or in Nissan's case, you know, that 1,000 horsepower monster going around Le Mans in 1990. How do you actually stir emotion and passion? And are there the characters there? And do you feel that you're managing to do that?
Yeah, well, we think there's a lot of character, and we characterize it as really it's the new sound of speed. I mean, if you come to a Formula E event, you will hear things you have never heard from at a race event. One, you hear the people. You hear the passion. You only had to have been in Mexico in the stadium to hear 50,000 people roaring as the cars came by. That's really exciting. And to hear the cars, the dynamics of the cars, the tires, when the cars, if they collide, the actual physical sounds, it's something new. So now we don't just have the auditory of the engine, we have everything else. And the driver can hear his own car, which is, again, another dynamic. I think you just have to be there to experience it, and you'll be converted. And again, we've seen it everywhere we go, every year, year after year, the crowds get bigger and the excitement just keeps on building.
And when it started 5 years ago, I mean, you know, Nissan probably looked at it then, but was there this sort of reservation about, is this really going to catch on?
In our terms, we were looking at it from the very beginning. We were actually part of the tender process for the original battery, but for us it was about timing. You know, right now the advances in the sport, in the season 5 car, what we call the Generation 2 car, is really following in the pace of our own road car development. You have increased battery range, increased power. The season 5 car has 54 kilowatts, double the previous generations. They only need 1 car to finish the race as opposed to 2 car, and this matches our own road car development. And our objective was to bring our road car experience to the track. That was actually how we started. Many other people think about racing sometimes as what motorsports offers the road or production side, but we actually started it from the opposite side. What does 400,000 vehicles and 10 billion kilometers of driven miles by Nissan Leaf clients give us in racing? And there's a very specific answer to that, and it's the battery management system, the learnings and simulations. We were able to take a lot of that and bring that directly to the race application, which we then hope to learn more about in racing to bring back to production side, but we think it's a cycle that goes both ways.
And are you already seeing things that you're learning on the racetrack that will be fed back, and does it accelerate the speed of development?
It absolutely does. The amount of data that you can collect in 1 day of running is quite significant, and the conditions. Again, what we see in racing is that the conditions on any given day are varied, and you have to react to that. So how does the software manage that? How does the system cope with could be raining this weekend, which would be another first for us in Formula
That'll be the
E.
first ever wet race, won't it?
It would be.
I was always told that electricity and water don't mix.
They're pretty well packaged together. It's okay, I think.
Now, for a driver, I mean, you've got an absolutely stellar list of drivers in this series. I mean, people are, almost household names, really, and both been successful in Formula One, successful in sports car racing. Is there something, something particularly different about driving these cars, or is it with the case of a driver, could Lewis Hamilton jump in a Formula E car and go quickly immediately?
Well, without naming names, I think you've seen the result of that. I mean, great drivers have come over to the series and had a really difficult time with the cars. The cars, on purpose, have been designed to be difficult to drive. The number of driver aids is kept at a minimum. What we call just the power to weight, the power to grip ratio is very low on these cars. They're using not traditional racing slick tires with not a lot of downforce, and they're on streets. So you will see a lot of accidents, you'll see a lot of driver mistakes, and we're talking about a series in which you have all of your running condensed into one day. Qualifying is one lap, and that one lap determines whether you start in the front of the field or literally in the back of the field. 7/10 separated almost 16 cars in the last practice session in Mexico. So it's very important, and the drivers that do well here have a combination of natural, pure driving talent, but they also have to adapt. They have to adapt to the efficiency game. When do I push? When do I not push? When do I pass? When do I save energy? When do I go full out? How to be aggressive, or when to wait the game out. It's a very mental driver's game in this series.
Now, Formula E, it started off, it had a bit of a shaky start in some respects, and it nearly went bankrupt. But now it's actually one of the fastest growing motorsport series in the world. And you've got a lot more manufacturers coming in, and Porsche and Mercedes both showed their cars for next year this week. So you've got more manufacturers in this series than any others. Manufacturers are leaving other series. I mean, Mercedes going from the DTM to Formula E. But, of course, there can only be one winner. I mean, do you see that down the line, if you're not successful, you'll see some of these manufacturers pulling out? I mean, Toyota didn't hang around in Formula One for long because they couldn't get the success. And is there a lot of pressure from the boardroom back in Japan?
Well, it's a great question, but again, another unique feature of this championship is the way the manufacturers are working with the promoters to develop the series. Because again, our objective is about the racing and about EV technology. Our goal, our common goal of all manufacturers is to build the ecosystem around EV, and we still have a lot of work to do to teach millions and millions of people what EVs are about and all the benefits that they bring to the table. So it's in our interest as manufacturers to work together and focus on the pure elements of EV, and that's why the series regulations are limited to the areas that provide benefits and solutions in EVs. And I think that's critical to the success for all of us, all manufacturers, to stay in long term. But there's also equity. The type of development is limited so that it doesn't become a cost or a money budget issue game. It's really about clever solutions, solving problems, and teaching people.
So you don't think that with the likes of Porsche and Mercedes coming in, and BMW and this host of manufacturers, that it's going to become an arms race and just get completely out of hand from a finance point of view?
It's the biggest risk the championship has, and the one we're fighting to resolve every day. There are all kinds of cost measures in place today, from a common chassis and common battery that are used by all the teams to avoid that kind of development cost, but also things like the limited number of team members. There's only 20 members allowed to work on the car at all times. That's it, no more. And that really limits your capability, and it also stretches the possibilities of the individuals, engineers, really tests us. Because when you have 50 guys working on one piece of data, somebody might find something. But when you have one guy that has to work on that data, it's difficult. And I think that's what's unique. It's helping us also develop new tools and new strategies around how to use and manage data. So it's very complex, but I think we're doing a good job at managing that.
And does the fact that Tesla's not involved, how is that viewed within Formula E? I mean, they make a lot of noise, but you make more cars.
Yeah, I don't comment on other manufacturers. I focus on what we're doing. We produce the best-selling EV in the world. We're deploying it in more countries every day, and I think we've shown that leadership by actions, and I hope that that's what we continue doing on the racetrack as well.
Now, okay, Formula E, it's all electric. Formula One is now hybrid. Nissan makes both electric cars and hybrids. I mean, are we in a situation where this is like VHS and Betamax years ago, and one of them will emerge, but then they'll be trumped by DVDs, which might be hydrogen cells in the car industry? Or are you absolutely, you've bet the ranch on EVs?
We've bet the ranch on Nissan Intelligent Mobility, and really that's about our three pillars about how cars are driven, how they're powered, and how they're integrated into overall society. And that means we have multiple solutions. This week in Geneva, we just unveiled the IMQ, our next generation crossover with e-Power, which is a hybrid, but it's the best-selling hybrid in Japan at the moment, and we're bringing that technology to Europe and all over the world. So EV is one solution, e-Power is another solution, and you're right, we have to continue to look towards the future and what other technologies and advances are out there, but we are for sure electrifying our entire portfolio because we think it's simply the right thing to do.
Well, we talked earlier about simulators, and Nissan has been involved with simulators in motorsport and using them right throughout the business. You were the first company to take a gamer and turn him into a professional racing driver. Formula E, it's part of its DNA is this link to esports, and that's sort of really helping with the fan engagement. I mean, you know, you can go along over the weekend and actually race the actual racing drivers in the simulator event. How important has that been, and this, in terms of the appeal of Formula E to this next generation of people, these millennials who probably won't be buying cars?
Yeah. Well, we think Formula E really had a brilliant idea when they said we need to be electric, but we also need to be in city centers. And the reason why that's important is because it shifted the demographic of who's watching and who's participating in the events. So as this weekend you'll see, it's not a male-dominated event in terms of viewership. It's very much split between a male, female, but families and children coming, and that's what's important. We need to educate and give the children an opportunity to see what EVs do and what they bring. Now, if that means when you're 10 or 12 years old, you're playing with a game that's teaching you about that, or that you're driving, might lead you to say, this car I have in the game, and I can actually go and race that car, or drive that car, or buy that car. And we've done that not only through the Formula E car and our production Leaf, but we've also recently announced the Leaf Nismo RC, which was a complete carbon car, but using production parts, real production battery and motors, and making an amazing race car out of it, just to show what the technology can do. So I think millennials and youth in general will, whether they're buying cars, they'll still be using EVs, and they'll be using services around the whole ecosystem, and we want that to be Nissan ecosystem.
And this audience that you're appealing to, I mean, Formula One has become much more exclusive. It's now gone behind a paywall on TV, so people aren't going to be able to see it. But Formula E is free-to-air TV. It's got this broader demographic, as you see. But at the same time, biggest shareholder in Formula E is Liberty Media, who own Formula One. I mean, is this hoping to see the cream rising to the top? I mean, is Formula E going to take over from Formula One? Are drivers going to aspire to be Formula E drivers?
Well, we certainly hope that it's a career path on its own right for many drivers. We're already working on the roadmap and the ladder for those drivers.
And would that be people coming through simulators?
They could be coming through simulators, through e-karting, and through other forms of electric racing, but we think that they can coexist. I mean, we're not trying to reduce the size of motorsports. We're trying to increase the size of motorsports. And as many fans as there are for F1, if there are the same number of fans for Formula E, we'd all be happy. So I'm not looking for a smaller pie. I'm looking for a bigger pie.
Any questions from our gathered people here? Yes, Florence, our president.
Well, just I'd love some comments about Hong Kong as a place for this race. I was told that the roads by people who use motorcycles are terrible in Hong Kong. Is it true, and how does it affect the race? And
Well, it's again another interesting dynamic. Most motorsports occurs on a physical track, a permanent circuit, where the teams know every inch of that track, backwards and forwards, and they can model it. And that's one of the unique characteristics. We come to an event and we don't know everything about the event. And Hong Kong in particular has the unique characteristics of narrow streets. So it creates a track where the passing zones are few and far between. The potential for crashing is quite high. The road surface has, I would say, a variety of challenges to them. But again, that's what makes the sport interesting, and it makes the best drivers really excel, because the best drivers adapt to that condition. They see the opportunities and they take advantage when they can without causing too much risk. But again, this is our third event here. This is actually the 50th E-Prix for Formula E, so it is a milestone for Formula E, and I think racing on a waterfront in an iconic city, well, that's what Formula E should be about. Hong Kong is on the map because of that for Formula E.
Yep.
So, sorry, somewhat of a technical question. Fascinated when you say you're aiming at 98% plus efficiency. It's fantastic. How much of that number, though, is reharvesting in the braking system and feeding energy back into the battery?
Well, the unique, or I guess one of the challenges we have in most production cars, or in any electric car that has a front-wheel drive system, the front wheels are the ones that have the most braking energy, and those are the ones which are typically used to recharge. In our case, we only have rear-wheel drive, so the recovery from the rear wheels is quite low in overall capacity in terms of recharge. We don't gain a significant amount, but it does create an opportunity for us to maximize our efficiency or our usage of energy during a circuit. Remember, we're racing for the 45 minutes plus the 1 lap with a battery potential that's probably sized just short of that on purpose to create the dynamic that we need in the event. Yeah.
So it is, you don't feel that some of those things like that particular aspect, fan boost and things, are gimmicks in any way? Or do they add to the show?
Watch the last 4 races and you will see the outcome of the event either supported by fan boost or by attack mode in a way that you couldn't create otherwise. And to be honest with you, there's no clear front runner yet. There's no clear team in front, and that dynamic is exciting. I mean, I think it's why people will watch now and in the future.
So for a driver to get this fan boost, where it's voted for to get that extra bit of power, I mean, what does he have to do? Is he out in Lang Kwai Fong buying drinks tonight, or?
Well, that's why we're here tonight, to get all of you to do Nissan fan boost for Sebastian Buemi or Oliver Rowland, if you wish. But yes, we do a lot of digital campaigns, and again, an interesting technique is that Formula E is very digital. It's heavily done on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's really attracting the younger audiences through those mediums as well, not just terrestrial TV.
Right. Yes.
What would be the biggest challenge this weekend?
Biggest challenge this weekend for us is really to bounce back from the first 4 events. We know we have the pace. You know, the data shows where we're at, but we've had a mistake, an issue which we haven't been put together. The team, I think, really is focused on achieving maximum points this weekend, and the only way to do that is do what we normally do and not make mistakes, and that's what we're going to focus on.
I mean, as a team, you've won more Formula E races than anybody else in the history of it, so there's a bit of pressure.
There's a bit of pressure, and there's that desire. I mean, the team is completely motivated by that. That's their only focus. So I think regaining that step on the podium is an important step in our progress as Nissan to lead that way for them as well.
We had one more hand shoot up over there. Yes.
Sir, thank you for the comments. I just wanted to ask, do you have any view on the South China Morning Post's suggestion that Formula E Hong Kong be moved from the central harbor front to the Kowloon harbor front?
Unfortunately, I can't personally comment on track locations. I'm sure they're looking at the opportunities, and for us, what's important is that we're in a city center such as Hong Kong, but I'm not sure where the track layouts are.
Yeah, it's all been down to the length of the track, but
yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, this iconic harbourfront, it looks fantastic on television when you see it, and it's actually a great promotion for Hong Kong.
Exactly.
One final one. Yes, please.
We noticed the training in Formula One, you've got slicks and wet tyres. Is there slicks and wet tyres for E? And if there's not, how are you going to cope if it is raining?
Yeah, that's again one of the unique features. We use a dual purpose tire that's a dry and wet tire. The teams are not allocated, they're only allocated one set of tires for the weekend in general, so it's not like we're using tires after tires, so from a sustainability standpoint. But from a performance standpoint and a practical standpoint, the only thing we can do is let the driver do what he does. I mean, literally.
Or pray.
Trust me, I'll be doing both.
Right, well, we were allocated half an hour, as you've got to dash off to do countless other appointments in the run-up to the race. You've just arrived from Paris, come straight from the airport to here, for which we're very, very grateful. And Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck this weekend. Please, if you've got a few minutes, I'm sure the audience would be delighted to shake your hand and have a quick word with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.